In this video, we will pick up where we left off in our last lesson. We were creating a user details context mapper that would map the information in our LDAP to a auto user object. We have these two methods that we must implement from that interface. The first is the map user from context method. It has 3 arguments. The first is the dir context operations argument, and that is basically how we're going to interact with our LDAP. Then we get the username as well as the authorities of the user. We're going to construct an auto user object, and then we're going to set the fields on this new auto user by pulling information from the LDAP. So here we're going to invoke the set first name method, and then we're going to reach into the LDAP using the get string attribute. And all we got to do is provide the name of the attribute on the LDAP. So for the first name, it was the given name attribute in the LDAP that mapped to our user's first name. So we're going to do this for each of our fields. So we'll do it for the last name. That was the surname attribute within the LDAP. We also had the email field, which is mapped to the mail field in the LDAP. And then we have the username on our auto user object. And we don't need to reach into the LDAP for this one. We can just use the username that is passed into this method as an argument. Finally, we're going to set the authorities on our user. And we need to just pass in the authorities that were provided to this method as an argument to our set authorities method. And there we have constructed our auto user. We have provided information to Spring Security for how to take an LDAP entry for one of our users and map it to an auto user class, and that auto user is going to be placed within the security context holder on the authentication object's principal. Now we need to provide an implementation for our second method, which is map user to context. So now we're doing the reverse. We're going from an auto user object. So let's declare an auto user. We're going to cast our user object that is passed as an argument to this method to an auto user. And we can do that because we know that the object stored in the principal on the authentication object is of type auto user. And now that we have the auto user object, we're going to use our dir context adapter to set the attributes on the LDAP entry. ctx.set attribute value. We provide the name of the attribute as the first argument. So for the first name, we'll use given name once again. So we're going to call the get first name method on the auto user object. So we're going to do this for all of the fields on our auto user class. So there we just pulled in the last name. Now let's get the email. Now we're going to set the password. And then finally, we want to map the username to the UID. So there we've provided our implementation of the map user to context method. And at this point, we have almost established our custom user details context mapper. We do want to make sure that this class is declared as a bean, and we're going to give that bean a name of context mapper. Copy that onto your clipboard because we're going to use that in our later configuration. Now that we've set up our user details context mapper, we're going to navigate to our security context.xml file. And the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to add the context namespace. That way we can perform some component scanning. So go to the namespaces tab, and then make sure that your context namespace is checked for this configuration file. And then head back to your source, and now we can use the context namespace to component scan. That way we can pick up our new user details context mapper, and we're going to component scan the com.o'reilly.security package to pick up that bean. With that being in our IOC container, we can then associate that with our LDAP authentication provider. And the way we do that is by specifying the user context mapper reference, and then we just provide the name of our bean. So I'm going to go ahead and save our securitycontext.xml file. And at this point, that's all of the configuration changes we need to make to that file. Now we're going to navigate to our appointment controller class, and we're going to head to the save appointment method. So here's where we're creating a new appointment for a user. And as we saw before, we're basically hard coding in this user, but we're going to change it now to pull our auto user from the security context. So we're going to use the security context holder, and then we're going to get the context, then get the authentication object, then get the principal. And that's going to pull that auto user out of the security context holder that was able to be placed there because we defined the mapping within the user details context mapper. We're going to go ahead and save this controller class. Now we're going to navigate to our browser after we restart our server. And here at the browser, we're just going to attempt to sign in. And we're just going to use the kBowersox user. And the password is password. So there we've logged in. And now we're going to create a new appointment. So we'll just pick any old date. Once again, go with a Subaru. We'll say it's an Impreza. It's a 2014. We will get the oil changed. So now we'll save our changes. And there we see that we were able to use the information from our user details object within the controller, and we pulled that object from the security context holder, and it's actually a custom implementation of the user details interface, this auto user class, which is specific to our domain for the application. And that's all made available by a user details context mapper.